Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Inside Fnatic's Brush. Exceptionally last week there were no episode, there was just 2 games of a best of 3, so really not enough to make a video of. But this time we're covering both games, the one against Vitality and the latest one against Rogue. Let's jump right into it. 2 weeks ago Fnatic was facing Vitality and also an old mid laner, Niski, who just recently change his role into support. Looking at the draft from the first game, it's actually looking pretty juicy for Fnatic, who get their hands on both Gwen and Skarner, and also Aurelion Sol that we haven't seen that much this season. Unfortunately, the game doesn't start really well for the bot lane. They try to cheese the first trade to gain an advantage in lane, but instead Niski plays that moment really well. He knocks up both Upset and Mickey X, and Karzi is able to damage them quite a bit, forcing them to either recall or play super safe in lane while making them lose their summoners. Unfortunately, when it comes to clearing the opponent's vision, Fnatic get a little bit lazy and they completely pass by the pink in a pixel brush, will actually lead Upset to not get the final blow onto Niski, and behind actually get a 2v2 death and the advantage for the Vitality bot lane. It also doesn't help that Oscar also loses his 1v1 in the top lane, putting Fnatic further behind. Vitality plays their advantage rather well and they move as a unit wherever they go on the map, always catching Fnatic out of place and making sure that they always have reinforcement, as Fnatic has a tendency to always fight back in those moments. As a result, this makes most of the teamfights in Vitality's favour, with the Maokai and the Alistar preventing any form of engage and bringing a lot of peel, especially for Karzi, who just gets to be on the backline and never gets reached by either Gwen or Skarner. But for some reason, Vitality isn't satisfied with their advantage and decide around the 27th minute to overplay their hands on a hard engage on Upset and Mickey X, who is just behind. The good disengage kit from Fnatic actually enables them to sustain the engage and also at the same time have a bunch of shutdowns handed over from Vitality. The ensuing ace actually provides a complete gold swing in the favour of Fnatic, who also immediately grab a Baron. Vitality could have picked a worse moment for this. Against the high scaling comp from Fnatic, both Aurelion Sol and Gwen are getting to their third item or close to it, but specifically Humanoid has been scaling on the side lanes and stacking his passive, making his ultimate a complete nuke every time it gets activated. From this point forward, it's Fnatic who dictates the pace. No longer are they suffering the engages from Vitality, now they have full-blown LPL syndrome. The moment they see someone on the map, it's time to go in. And they don't really care because they have so much damage and burst that if Vitality gets caught, it's over for them. Exactly what happens in the mid lane, where Karzi gets taken out of position and obliterated. Vitality has nothing to answer this. With the advantage strongly on Fnatic's side, they just decide to end the game by getting a second Baron, catching Soul Drake, and finishing with a mid lane push. Fnatic takes the first map despite the very bad early game, but what I noticed is that we didn't see the usual panic from Fnatic, who goes for Hail Mary plays the moment it feels they are too far behind. On the contrary, they actually played the map rather well, not going over aggressive and instead letting Huma scale with his passive on the side lanes and giving him a massive CS and gold lead to be more impactful in the big team fights. Heading into game 2 of the series, this time we see the Poppy from Razork. A very smart pick when you notice that Naafiri, Renekton, Ahri and Leona have been picked on the side of Vitality. The Gragas pick is also very smart into the Renekton pick, as Oscar just needs to sustain in lane and can easily disengage at any moment Nako decides to be aggressive. The trend this time is completely different in the early game, where Fnatic takes the advantage with a good teamfight around the voids, except maybe for Upset slightly overcooking the chase onto Ahri. Rather than fighting, Fnatic decides to take the advantage this time through destroying turrets and widen the gold gap. This gap gets even crazier after a crazy teamfight around the Baron pit, Re-engage from out of nowhere from Mikix just transforms this whole situation into a complete brawl. Thankfully, Razork plays this amazingly, the Sunder giving him the HP to sustain the team fight, stunning opponents left and right while Humanoid pincers on the backside and finishes the whole team fight with an ace completed by Oskarnen. With an even bigger gold advantage, Fnatic decides it's time to get aggressive and to skill check Vitality. Big team fight in the bot lane that Fnatic completely has under control, and even with the re-aggression from Vitality, Fnatic are very happy to accept it as they have the GA passive from the Arakan and realize, hey, it's actually our time to fight. Vitality sinks even deeper into the game. In the meantime, Humanoid is very happy to play PvE and take down the turrets while Vitality overload one side of the map. For example, Vitality tried to find a teamfight around the Baron and overchase, not getting anyone from Fnatic, and Humanoid has all the space to take turrets in the bot lane and push into the inhibitor. As Vitality tried to recall, they're actually split up in their own jungle, and Fnatic is very happy to chase them, stop the recall, and even grabbing a few kills at the same time. Humanoid just sees a straight finish line into the Nexus, which he both pushes with his teammates, collapsing on the top side. GG's, Fnatic close it 2-0. A much better game than the first one, with the objective of controlling the map rather than skill checking Vitality at every corner. The massive teamfight from Razork but also Humanoid definitely gave the biggest advantage and the snowball in that part of the game. Humanoid split pushing the whole game completely twisted Vitality's plans, and he just pushed it to the finish line very easily with no one contesting him. With a 2-0 secured over Vitality, it was time to face Rogue on the following week. While Rogue is definitely one of the weakest teams in the league right now, they've still managed to surprise their opponents, grabbing one map here and there but never concluding a 2-map win. As we jump into game 1, Oskarnen gets put on the weak side role with a Sion pick. At the same time, Fnatic is very happy to have access to the Kalista, which has always been great in the hands of Upset. And as it would be proved in the early stages of the game, Rogue tried to dive a Sion, and the good timing from the lane swap actually enables Upset to grab 2 kills, while Oscar delays the dive as much as possible with a good knock up onto Adam as he tries to go in and give it time for his team to reach and get a 2-0 start. The top mid control from Fnatic enables Razork to secure 6 voids, but also to give Upset the first 2 turrets and giving him a massive advantage against Patrick. This sets Fnatic at a 4k gold advantage at 15 minutes, and an Oscar who can tank turrets for days and allow his team to be aggressive under turrets. As Fnatic continued to snowball their lead, Rogue tried to play a tempo on Arakan while Razork is doing Drake. However, they forget that they're playing against the Pantheon and he can easily be from one side to the other of the map. Oscar engages, Razork drops from the sky, and the entirety of Fnatic collapses onto Rogue, getting a couple of kills and securing Arakan at the same time. Rogue continued to fall behind and get punished by Fnatic for any bad position that they take around the neutral objectives. Final push top where Fnatic goes all in and almost anyone dies, thank you Mickey X, allows Fnatic to conclude the game in around 27 minutes. This game was the definition of macro. Good tempo control and taking advantage through turrets rather than kills really was a breath of fresh air compared to what we saw against Vitality. And quite surprisingly, around 24 minutes, there were only 6 kills until the Arakan teamfight. Now it was time to see if Game 2 was going to give us the same quality. Fnatic decided to switch it up with a heavy skirmish comp that has good engage and disengage option with the Rakan and the Jax. The early game this time is a little bit more aggressive with everyone on the team getting their share of kills. As Rogue doesn't want the Jax to snowball too hard, Oskarnen gets heavily focused throughout the game. However, he plays this focus rather well in general, especially at one time getting 1 kill back and providing Fnatic with an insane tempo on the map where they trade Oskarnen's death with the second turret mid and the first turret in the top lane. Again, it's another perfect demonstration of macro from Fnatic, who's almost repeating what they did in the first one. Indeed, almost, because Fnatic still does a Fnatic and doesn't get their timing right on an engage on the top lane against Rogue, with Mickey going way too early and getting obliterated on a not so tanky Rakan. But it actually doesn't really matter, because at this stage Fnatic has a 7k gold lead, almost the same as in game 1 in terms of timing. Humanoid even dares to play rather aggressive, goes back in, and Fnatic trade 2 for 2. But most importantly, they get the Arakan and a Drake. Just like in the first game, Rogue find themselves behind. Execute is trying to make something happen, but gets completely isolated from his team and gives a free kill for Fnatic. This in return triggers a Baron execution for the team, while Rogue tries to catch them on the exit. And they actually do not too bad, with Larson getting a good shuffle, pushing 2 of the members into Adam's renekton waiting clause. Unfortunately for Rogue, they don't really catch the big carries on the team, Humanoid and Upset, who are very happy to clean up the fight with a free item Upset, who just chases after them, flashes over the wall, a sign that Upset has decided the game is over. And indeed, they just push mid with the wave waiting for them. Another 27-minute game close. 2-0, clean, done and dusted for Fnatic. Well, what a difference that was compared to the previous games that we've had in the split so far. I would even go as far as to say it's the most controlled game I've seen from any team in the season in the LEC. One more thing I would add, I'm actually quite surprised with Huma's aggression. We know he's usually a rather reserved player who will control the game but never be the one to really go forward unless he's in a specific position. This time he even dared to lay a wall into the opponent, not knowing if he would get 1 or 2 kills, but definitely would trade his life and go 1 for 1. It doesn't matter, he still went for it and had full confidence in his team in trading back the kill. The harsh improvement between the Vitality and Rogue game is clear to see. In the interview after the game, MakeX even confessed that Duff is the main reason for the improvement in the mid game, and I personally think that Humanoid's style of play fits really well with Duff, and it's probably why we see our mid laner having much better performances overall. Obviously, there are still some elements to improve on, as Grabs shared on his latest conference. We still saw on the second game from Rogue a little bit of that Fnatic int, but still much more controlled and no risk of froze were seen at that moment. The slight downside is that the performance coach that was meant to go with Fnatic has decided to go with a more traditional sport team, and that means more waiting for the performance coach, which is a bit of an issue as we're already getting into that mid-season timing. Nonetheless, the level of macro and composure showcased by Fnatic against Rogue is a great sign of things to come, especially before facing Mad Lions Koi and G2 and the Madrid Roadshow coming this weekend. This will be the opportunity to see how Fnatic reacts in front of a massive and hype live crowd, but most importantly to see how consistent they stay with their recent improvement, especially against G2, who just like to play like T1 once they face Fnatic, but also Mad Lions Koi, who can be a little bit unpredictable both in their draft and their aggression. In any case, it's going to be an amazing event to see, and for those taking part, our Spanish brothers over in Madrid, scream as loud as possible and represent the Fnatic fan base and cheer for our guys to take another series against Mad Lions Koi, but most importantly against G2. Or maybe for you guys, it's most important to win against Mad Lions for the added banter, of course. Bring on the heat this weekend. Everyone is behind you guys. And until then, enjoy the games. Gracias, and see you next week to review both games. Always Fnatic. Bye bye.